Episode 6. When the stars gossip begins with Mr. Choi's family's joy when they see the photos that Kang-Su just sent confirming that Dong-Hun's sperm has successfully entered the Naminjiang ovum and developed into a morula. From all the morulas, only 3 of the healthiest will be selected with the greatest chance of success and will be implanted into Naminjiang's uterus. Mr. Choi asks her to take care of her health so that she is ready to receive the implant from the morula. And Mr. Choi himself can die peacefully and without regrets. But Go-eun reluctantly congratulates to her, and as a result, Mr. Choi praises Kang-Su for doing all that to succeed, and he expresses his wish for Go-eun to marry Kang-Su because it isn't easy for anyone can enter their family. However, the happy situation on Earth is in contrast to the situation in space where tension is rising on board the ISS when all the astronauts find out about the secret operation. Kang-Su lies about the sample and its origins. He claims that he stole Santiago's sperm to do this. Santiago's sperm could not fertilize the ovum on Earth due to morphological abnormalities and genetic defects, but Kang-Su succeeded here. Kang-Su defended himself by saying that a scientist is not wrong to develop his imagination. But Eve made a bold, executive decision. She would report this to the MCC and immediately dispose of the ovum. Ryong had his own reasons for wanting to stop it, but Eve insisted. Considering that the ovum was exposed to many risks in space filled with unknown radiation and cosmic rays, and that the ovum was not protected by a mother's womb, the risk was too high to take. No one could predict how it would develop when this unidentified energy entered Earth. It was possible that these cells would become cancerous lumps and easily spread to everyone. Even if you freeze them, these cells would still be exposed to unexpected risks. In addition, considering that it was also a violation of space ethics, he could not allow this to continue. Ryong tries to prevent Eve from doing the destruction by considering the ovum cells as humans and as the starting point of life. Although the fertilization is not natural, they are still humans who can possibly survive radiation and unknown rays, and can be born with various obstacles. Even though Ryong has given his best argument, the fertilized ovum cells are still destroyed by Commander Eve. Ryong is angry and calls Eve as a murderer for what she has done. Not only that, Eve also shows her firmness by keeping the microscope and giving the access code to take it and also reporting the Kang-Su's mistake to Mission Control. Finally, Tae-hui, the chief of Mission Control, decides that Kang-Su has violated bioethics and endangered humanity with an unauthorized experiment that caused chaos on the space station and brought shame to all astronauts. Therefore Kang-Su is dismissed from Expedition 3 and he is no longer an astronaut and will be returned to Earth in 3 days. Eve thinks that the problem is the result of her negligence. As a sense of responsibility, she will resign, but Tae-hui asks Eve to remain as commander for the time being. Of course, Eve is still shaken by Dong-A's affair, so this must be bothering her as she asserts her authority throughout the station. Back on Earth, Mr. Choi and his 2 daughters finally experience a shocking incident when Kang-Su reveals that the morula has been destroyed. The only hope now lies with Ryong, who actually has 3 samples of ovum cells, which he took when the ISS station was indicated to be on fire. Kang-Su also tells that the microscope and equipment are monitored 24 hours a day according to the instructions of Eve's current commander. It seems that it is an almost impossible task. Hearing all that, Mr. Choi is furious and he will take revenge on the perpetrators, including Commander Eve. Because his mind is not strong enough, Mr. Choi finally faints and is taken to the hospital. Fortunately, he is fine, but when he regains consciousness, he tells his daughter to take this to Ryong and let him continue. Go-eun and Minjong both intend to give up, but Jae-ryong is stubborn and wants the fertilization of the remaining ovum to be carried out. Back at the ISS station, Sung-jun talks to Mina and suggests that they split the lottery winnings with Santiago as well. Mina offers to split it 4 for her friend Donna, but they eventually come to an agreement on 3 because Donna is not trying. They are all unaware of what Ryong is planning. Ryong does not want a share of the lottery prize, but he wants them to do something for him. The plan Ryong has in mind is for the 3 astronauts to lift and hold Ryong with all their might while he is wearing a working spacesuit, in exchange for keeping the lottery ticket a secret. Santiago demands to know why, and it is here that Ryong reveals the truth about what he is doing, which is fertilizing an ovum like Kang-Su did. When Mina finds out, she decides not to go through with it, but the other two are willing to take the risk because it is the money their wives are waiting for back home.
못해요.
Long story short, Ryong then performed the fertilization operation of the ovum and sperm assisted by his two colleagues. It was really tense because they held Ryong's leg steady while he worked. Now, remember that Ryong had 3 eggs here and there was very little room for error. Because of the difficulty of performing the operation without a microscope, the first 2 ova failed. Shortly after that, Eve appeared and Ryong was forced to stay silent and hide in his spacesuit. Actually, Eve came to them to find Ryong and also to find fault with her subordinates who liked to sneak in alcoholic drinks. So the atmosphere became very tense when she looked around. Eve then said that she had neglected once, but not twice, and her subordinates could drink as much as they wanted when they went home later. Finally, Santiago made up a story that they had stayed up late to pack because they were going home, and it seemed to work and Eve left and they managed to continue without being caught. And before that, there was an incident where Ryong's syringe suddenly came off and floated away. Luckily Eve didn't know about it and Mina came and took it, then gave it to Ryong, and they continued the mission, and finally the last ovum fertilization was considered successful. Ryong breathed a sigh of relief, while the others praised Ryong, who was great at doing an impossible job. If Mr. Choi could witness this, of course he would be happy, and maybe Ryong could become a member of Mr. Choi's family later. However, this was not the only success here. Eve brought Ryong and together, they watched the male rats sing to attract female rats like they were courting. Then, Eve and Ryong looked at each other and watched the rats mate for the first time in space.